Hello and welcome back. And if you're a newcomer, welcome. Today on the bench we have a Novatech aircraft receiver Air-O-Ear model 711WN. Now you can blame this video on Mike of Mike's Radio Repair, because the other day he did one on an AC/DC set and that just forced me to haul this old beast out. You know how it goes. If they pull out a knife, you pull out a gun. They kill one of yours, you kill 10 of theirs. Isn't that how the line goes? Anyway, you can blame all this on Mike. This is an AC/DC set, very similar to the one he showed the other day, except this has aircraft band, low frequency band, AM band, medium frequency band, HF band, and aircraft VHF band. Quite a receiver. This was built sometime, and that's not this radio. I'm on the wrong frequency. 1249. I'm going to have to see if I can dial that in. 1249. We'll go up here near 125, maybe find it. That was the trouble with these radios back in the day, back in the 70s. There was an analog scale, and aircraft traffic is extremely intermittent, and unless you had a great deal of patience or lived next to an airport like New York or New Jersey, where there were just flights every couple of minutes and constant aircraft traffic, it's very hard to find anything on these to listen to. But it was an interesting receiver. Now, Novatech built a lot of aircraft radio equipment back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They were out of Manhattan. Nope, still didn't catch him. That's my other scanner you hear in the background. This does have a squelch, by the way, which made it quite useful. They were in Manhattan Beach, California, and they manufactured all kinds of aircraft radio, two-way radio equipment, ground equipment for airports and air traffic control, and so on and so forth. But when I picked this up, it had a distinctly Japanese look and feel to it. Now, this did not have a case on it. It still does not have a case on it. I have never seen one with a fully intact case. I've seen a lot of these with broken cases. But it's very well built. Now, Mike of Mike's Radio will tell you, when you look inside a piece of Japanese built equipment from the 70s, it's very obvious that it's a piece of Japanese equipment. I'm going to power this down so I don't blow something up here and flip this thing on its back. And you can see, because it's low frequency LF, it'll pick up the NDB, non-directional beacons, all the way up to aircraft communications frequencies and the VHF band. But it needs shielding because it's a very, very broadband receiver. And you'll just look at the bottom of this, and Mike will tell you, any mechanic or any technician who's been working on this equipment for any number of years will look at this and instantly say, this is a Japanese radio, just from the font on the capacitors, from the style of the resistors, the sheet metal work, the general appearance, the design of the case and cabinet, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Japanese made perfectly good equipment back in the day. But somebody who does this all the time can look at one of these radios and say, this is Japanese, this is German, this is US made. And it wasn't until I found one of these with a nearly intact case on it, and on the bottom there was a serial number tag. And the serial number tag said, sold by Novatech Incorporated, manufactured by Nova-Tech Japan Incorporated. And there you have it. This was a Japanese-made radio that used Novatech Tech as their name, and they used the Air-O-Ear badge, now probably with permission from Novatech, because everything that Novatech made for aircraft said Air-O-Ear on it. So it was probably built in Japan for Novatech back in the 70s for the commercial for the consumer market, hoping they could probably revive a little bit of, their slumping sales and make a little income selling these. I don't think they were very popular. There's not an awful lot of them. It's the typical, what I call AC/DC set, no transformer. The proper technical name would be a transformer-less radio, because these would, they had a series string filament tube. All right, yeah, but easy for me to say. Let's start that over. The tubes are a series string on the filaments that total up to 120 volts. Some radios had a dropping resistor, and the tubes might total up to 90 volts. Some sets are set up so the tubes total 120 volts. And you'll see on the back of the chassis, this has an output for a tape deck and a headset. And notice they're on phenolic or some kind of insulating material. It almost looks like a cardboard material, but I know it's not cardboard. They isolated them from the chassis, and the plastic cabinet would have surrounded this, covering up the screws, and only left the jack available. Or try that again. You couldn't get to the screws, you could only get to the jack. Same thing here. You could only get to the jack, you couldn't get to the screws, because these radios have a hot chassis, and if you go watch Mike's video, he'll explain that to you. I won't go into the whole thing again. But I did something a little bit different here. I put a 3-wire power cord on this. I made sure that the neutral side was connected to the chassis. The hot side went through the filaments and powers everything. And I actually have the ground connected to the chassis and a 3-prong plug. These never came with a 3-prong plug. They came with the old standard, old-fashioned reversible 2-prong plug. And if you plug them in backwards, they could kill you in this condition. Since I used to use this out in the garage and down here in the basement on the concrete floor, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get bit. And I wired my house. I know all the outlets are wired correctly, so I can safely plug this thing in anywhere in the house I want to, or out in the garage. However, if you go into an older home where somebody has cobbed together 3-prong outlets and not wired them correctly, and you plug this in, you could blow up something. You could either pop the breaker or blast this choke out of here. You could do some damage. I'd rather do that than get killed. Anyway, let's turn this thing on and see what it sounds like. And let me get this. We've got the covers back on, and it's all warmed up and ready to go. And earlier I said the Japanese made some pretty good equipment, but they were not immune from having things go wrong once in a while. And this radio is a case in point, and probably why it ended up in the trash, along with being a little difficult to do the aircraft band. It would have made a decent AM receiver. However, when I got the radio, this was as low as you could turn the volume.
To 1%, but we have reversed course, weaker now in the
and no matter what you did, it wouldn't go any lower than that unless you shut it totally off. Now that usually means there's something wrong with the pot, and a lot of times it's the side of the pot that's going to ground, because when you turn the volume all the way down, it shorts the signal to ground, and that's how it lowers the volume. Okay, we took the pot and we checked it, and we had continuity on both ends of the pot, continuity from the center tap to both sides. The pot worked very smoothly, it wasn't noisy. The problem was, when you turned it all the way down to minimum volume, it was still 10,000 ohms across these two terminals. Now most pots go down to, if they don't go down to a dead short, they'll go down to 10 ohms or 20 ohms. The one I replaced it with goes down to 40, and you can still hear a little bit of sound in the background on an extremely strong station. I never bothered fixing that because it was always on the VHF band, and on the VHF band it has a squelch, and I never wanted the volume all the way down on the VHF band. I wanted to be able to hear the aircraft. But tonight I took a look and found a pot and replaced the pot. So Mike will be proud of me. I actually fixed something. But how does the radio sound? How does it work? Fairly well, actually. This is AM.
Is again urging officials to further promote the Belt and Road Initiative so as to better benefit.
And it has a lot of stations. Reasonable sensitivity on the AM band, all the way down to the other end. Now let's try it on the low frequency band. Now, here in Hooksett, New Hampshire. I'm very close to the Concord Airport, and they have an NDB beacon on 216 kilohertz. Let's see if we can find it. Now, I'm so close to some AM stations, and I've got a huge antenna on this at the moment, so I'm going to get some bleed through from the AM broadcast band, but we should be able to find the Concord beacon. There it is. CO, Concord. So this radio works all the way down to 200 kilohertz. We've already heard AM. We'll try medium frequency.
Which mushroom?
That's the 80 meter ham band. Of course, it's sideband. This radio doesn't do sideband. And the 80 meter band actually sounds pretty busy tonight. Let's try the HF band. The HF band will take us up to from 5 to 15 megahertz.
Hardly added. La final de. I do it with compassion.
So that works fairly well, and I know for a fact the VHF band works. It's just hard to get enough activity around here this time of night to demonstrate that, and the squelch comes in handy. So, the Arrow Ear, a piece of history from the 70s. Unfortunately, if you have one of these and it's broken, there does not appear to be any service information available. It was manufactured in Japan. I don't believe Sam's ever made a photo fact for this thing. I know a lot of people have been looking for schematics for these. There's a lot of forums. People looking for schematics or trying to track down a Sam's for these radios, but it just doesn't appear to exist. And it's too bad. It's kind of a cool little piece of history and works fairly well when it works. And I should also add, this radio is 100% original. It's untouched except for the pot that I just placed in here. And I know Mike's going to kill me for not changing all the filter caps, but I checked them with an ESR meter before I turned it on tonight, and they're down around 0.2 of an ohm. Still looking pretty good. The main filter cap's fine. It's running nice and cool. It's not getting warm. The other two electrolytics that are underneath, or three electrolytics that are underneath the chassis, all tested good with the ESR meter. And I hardly ever use this thing. It's mine, you know, it is what it is. So sorry, Mike. I'm just going to keep using it like it is. If it was really worth something, I'd change all the electrolytics. Hope you found this mildly interesting. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if anybody out there knows any more about the radio than what I've already said, pass the information along. Put it in the comments so people can find it. And if you do know of a schematic for one of these, there's a lot of folks looking for it. It'd be helpful if you put that in the comments and let somebody find it. I'm the Radio Mechanic, and sorry about this, but blame Mike. Talk to you later. Bye.